Hello and welcome to God in Film, the podcast where a Christian and an atheist dive into the best that cinema has to offer to see if we can find any parallels with the gospel or any other Bible stories. I'm media coordinator and treacherous disciple, Giles Goff.
And I'm librarian and world traveller, Julia Hull.
And for the second part of our Easter special, we're looking at The Chosen Season 5, the multi-season series focusing on the life of Jesus as seen through his followers. We'll be asking, what do the Gospels say about violence, and how do we deal with religious violence in today's world? But before we get into that, you might have just noticed that Julia seems to be incapable of pronouncing her own name. Julia, do you want to tell us what's going on with you?
So I may or may not have gotten married. Woo! So I'm a
Yeah!
Mrs. now. I got a ring and everything.
Well
And
done.
so my new name is Hull now. So
Spell it out for the people.
it's a Hull. So I didn't even change all of my name. I changed half a letter of my name. And if that's not love, I don't know what is, to be quite honest.
Welcome to married life. It's insane. You'll love it.
Yeah.
You've been traveling the globe, so you might not have had time to sort of catch as much
Mm.
of season 5 of The Chosen as we'd like. I have been trying to squeeze in as many episodes as I can. There's still the last few episodes I don't think I've seen, but there is still plenty to talk about in the ones that we have seen. We're going to get into Julia's facts now, which is going to be
Woo.
quite short because we
Very short
have
and sweet.
covered this show quite
So
extensively, you guys, you know? Okay.
if you haven't heard any of our previous episodes on The Chosen, one of my favorite facts about this show is the set builder and set designer had all of the people who worked on the set. So the streets of Capernaum, the whole there's a massive, huge 9 acre set in Texas where they film all this.
Hmm.
The set constructing lead had all the people who worked on it write their favorite Bible quotes or Bible passages on the walls partway through construction, so they're not visible in the show, but they're there,
Hmm.
which I think is a very lovely way of kind of including everyone and sort of including that element into the show.
Yeah.
For this season specifically, apparently George Xanthis, who plays John, and Noah James, who played Andrew, kept a Star Wars themed tabletop card game set up in their green room. Now I don't know what this is specifically. I have some thoughts, but it wasn't named outright in the article I was reading. But they would race over to play during a brief 15-minute scene that neither of them had a role in.
Hmm.
So it was this ongoing TCG that they would just run and play in between takes, which is absolutely a mood. And then my other fact is a bit gross, but
Hmm.
apparently the food props that they used for the Last Supper were real, including things like the lentil soup, but weren't changed out over the week. So apparently by Friday, they were pretty smelly
Yeah,
and bubbly also as well.
yeah,
So
I
if
can
no
believe
one's
that.
eating, I've not seen much of it. I watched the episode that you told me to watch, and I
Hmm.
think I know why you told me to watch that episode specifically.
Yeah.
So I think I understand why maybe nobody's digging in too much in those scenes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. That's all I got.
Fantastic. Nice and short and sweet to the point. I love it. Just a quick reminder that if you would like us to stay on the air and ad free, you can go to www.patreon.com/, the God in Film podcast and sign up to our Bishop Waller Bridge tier. How quick did I say that? I'm dead chuffed with myself. Where you can hear additional interviews and special bonus episodes like our God in You 2 and God in Gaming episodes. And if you're a bit strapped for cash and want to support us without spending money, then leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Podbean, or wherever you're listening to this. It makes a big difference, and I'm not going to lie, it tends to make my day whenever we get a new review. Now it's time for Finding the Faith in the Film.
Bye-bye.
So we're going to keep it really tight, really focused on this one today because certain people have been in Japan. We're recording this on Wednesday, the 1st of April. So this is the tightest we've ever done it in
Mm,
terms of things. So here we go. So as you can see with the season 5 of The Chosen, you've got the Last Supper being used as like a framing device. It's sort of
mm,
bits of it appear in every single episode, and it's fascinating because it's always different bits going along. And there's one line that when first time me and Claire watched it, we were like, "There's no way that's a Bible verse. They've definitely invented that line." And you know when you hear something you're like that does not sound right at all, and you're like, "Well,
Yeah.
how could they say such a thing? That sounds." And then you Google it, and it turns out it was there though. It's been in the Bible
It
the
was there
entire
the
time,
whole
and
time.
I've not noticed. So the section I'm referring to is the sell your cloak, buy a sword bit. It actually comes from Luke 22:35 to 38. Then Jesus asked them, when I sent you without purse, bag, or sandals, did you lack anything? Nothing, they answered. He said to them, but now, if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. It is written, and he was numbered with the transgressors, and I tell you that this must be fulfilled in me. Yes, what is written about me is reaching its fulfillment. The disciple said, see, Lord, here are two swords. That's enough, he replied. That's weird, right? That's not just
I mean,
me.
first thing for me is like either those cloaks are hella expensive or swords are hella cheap in like first century Middle East.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but yeah, I think that scene in the show as well, they're very like, yeah, we're happy to throw hands. You know,
Mm,
we'd kill and die for you. Like we'd
yeah,
happily do all that, and it's a bit like it's quite intense.
yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, though, there's got to be something else going on here because
Mm.
a few hours later, Roman soldiers they're going to leave from the Last Supper. They're going to go to the Garden of Gethsemane. There's not going to be nearly as much singing as we'd like, and Peter's going to get his sword out and he's going to chop the ear off a Roman soldier, and
Mm.
Jesus is going to rebuke him for it. It's this very strange contradiction, if you
Mm.
like. You saw the scene. It's like he's trying to tell them, like, no, I'm not being metaphorical. This is actually going to happen, and things are really going to get tough for you guys. Like, I couldn't say for definite, but I don't think any of these disciples are getting an old age. You know,
Mm.
they're all going to end up being martyred at some point or other, and it's quite intense seeing him prepare them for that. You know,
Mm.
so it's interesting the way they display it in the show. It's Z Simon Zealot who has the swords. You know,
Yeah.
and he goes, "See, Lord, here are two swords." And I think the idea is that he's got them off the Roman centurion. And then Jesus
They were
replied,
defo very gladius
"Yeah,
shaped.
100%, 100%." But then Jesus says, "That's enough." Well, think about this for a sec, right? Assuming Judas has already gone at this point, that's 11 men and two swords. That's distinctly not enough, you know? And if it's 11 men versus the entirety of the Roman Empire, I'm not liking their chances, you know?
No.
So if we dig back here, it is written, and he was numbered with the transgressors, and I tell you that this must be fulfilled in me. Yes, what is written about me is reaching its fulfillment. So there's a few different ways of reading this bit, and I've read up on a few things. I've not quite I've lost the original reference points for them, but there's one suggestion that the disciples are just completely misunderstanding, and he's being metaphorical at this point, and
Mm.
they're taking literally like, look, it's a sword. And so the that's enough could be means, oh, like, okay, that's enough. We're shutting down this part of the conversation about
Mm.
stabby, killy people. So it could be shutting down the conversation there, or that little bit about, and he was numbered with the transgressors. How many times have we seen where you have like a an activist group,
Mm.
and then if there is anything resembling a weapon or anything resembling them fighting back, then they become a violent terrorist group. Do you
Yes.
know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mm.
So obviously, two swords among 12 men by this point isn't going to be any use. But one way of interpreting this could be that the presence of the two swords will be enough justification that he's trying to lead a violent uprising
Yeah.
against the temple and against Rome, which obviously on the surface of it isn't going to make any sense but they're working against people who are already biased against him.
Yeah.
So that's one interpretation. There was one from Pope Boniface the Eighth. See, I
Oh
knew
my
you'd
God.
like.
I love a good. There's like there's a million Pope Bonifaces. I
I know
love
you'd
that.
like
That's.
a good medieval sword.
I
My
love a
friend,
good medieval Pope situation.
yeah. He referred to the two swords in the medieval papal bull Unum Sanctum to represent the temporal and spiritual authority of the church. We are informed by the text of the Gospels that in this church and in its power are two swords, namely the spiritual and the temporal. When the apostles say, "Behold, here are two swords," that is to say, in the church, since the apostles are speaking, the Lord did not reply that there were too many but sufficient. I'm not entirely sure what the temporal means. I guess that means like the physical.
I couldn't say for certain. There is like a fourth option to this, which is just that they're all really bad at math and they just can't count. Like,
If this guy was a tecton, a carpenter or a builder, then he must have been able to know how to count, you know? Otherwise, all his chairs, all his furniture would be
really
wonky,
wonky.
houses be falling
I
down left, right,
mean,
and center.
he was a carpenter. I don't know if the does the Bible dictate how good of a carpenter he was? Because there's carpenters and carpenters. Like I'm
Yeah,
just
well, I mean, he did he did transition careers, so that's
yeah.
take from that what you will, you know. I'm just going to read out what the theologian John Gill says. So, these words of Christ are not to be understood literally that he would have his disciples furnish themselves with swords at any rate, since he would have never said, as he afterwards does, that two were sufficient, which could not be enough for 11 men, or have forbid Peter the use of one, as he did in a very little time after this. But his meaning is that wherever they came and a door was open for the preaching of the gospel, they would have many adversaries, and these powerful, as in the adversaries powerful, and would be used with great violence and be followed with rage and persecution, so that they might seem to stand in need of swords to defend them. The phrase is expressive of the danger they would be exposed to and of their need for protection. So yeah, it's such a strange one, but I think the main thing I'm take from it is he's trying to tell them it's going to be a dangerous place out there, you know?
Yeah.
And now the next thing, the reason I got you to watch episode 2 specifically is the Jesus flipping the
It's
tables,
my
which
favorite Bible story.
is a whole thing,
I
right?
This was like a 7 out of 10 for me. There was a good amount of table flipping.
Hmm.
There was something on fire that was also fun. I feel like it could have been paced a bit better. Do you know what I mean?
I yeah,
Like he'll kind of flip a table and then he'll kind of quite calmly yell at
yeah.
somebody like move, get out of the way, and then he'll kind of walk around a bit and then flip another table. Like for me, I needed a quick succession of table flipping. Do you know what I mean? I needed it like up a couple notches.
Do you know what? It's fascinating you mention that because again, I feel this kind of underscores my point about how it feels like a trumped up charge, knocking down a few tables. I mean, if we've just seen it in Jesus Christ Superstar where it's a lot more dramatic.
Mm.
It's quite underwhelming a little bit. He lets some sheep out. He
Yeah,
knocks some
just
stuff. Nobody steps in to try and stop him, and it's quite strange, you know. I think what's more fascinating is the follow up. It's not so much that he's done this terrible thing because one of the things it juxtaposes in episode 1, there's like a flash forward to the
mm,
destruction of the temple where the Romans are like sacking and destroying everything, and
mm.
you're like, okay, he knocked over some pots, and he flipped a table,
He didn't destroy like he didn't take anybody's money. Like he didn't
yeah,
destroy anything that like couldn't be recovered, more
yeah.
or less.
Well, this is the really interesting thing in the next episode. There's one scene where the disciples are all together and they're trying to figure this out. They're trying to they're talking about, well, have you ever seen him lift a finger to use violence? And then one says, oh, well, I saw him arm wrestle a guy on a building site once, but it was all fun. I wrote down some of it. So when they start talking about Capernaum, when obviously the character of Raymer has died in
Mm.
in series 4. And it said he allowed violence to escalate all around him on account of his words and took no action to stop it. And then Matthew says, I think we should be very clear about something. He did not strike any person or animal in the market. Judas goes, are you crazy? He overturned the tables and inanimate objects. He did not whip the animals. He opened their pens and cracked his whip and drove them out. And then somebody else goes, I saw merchants and money changers get knocked to the ground by the stampeding animals, and the tables flipped. He physically assaulted. And then it's like, did he physically assault anyone?
Mm.
Does it matter when the overall outcome is that people get hurt? And then it's like, who cares? A couple of people got bruised. The entire event was an assault on our nation's religious system of worship and sacrifice. And then somebody else goes, well, it was an assault on the wrong version of our system of worship and sacrifice. And and then Judah says, if Raph has to make a statement, how can we defend both his behavior and words? And then somebody says, well, are you saying you wouldn't defend him? And then Judah says, well, I want to defend him, Z, but I don't know how. And it's fascinating, this.
Mm.
And
What
Jude,
kind of got me as well is that the first half of this episode, which I'm not gonna lie, was quite dry.
that's fair.
I feel like for a show that is like by the faithful for the faithful, I don't know
Hmm.
why you're spelling out to me very explicitly what the precise ritual connotations are for everything that we're about to do. And oh, is that Greek money? Well, you can't use Greek money with a pagan deity on the back. It has to be this, right?
Hmm.
But Tamar and
Is it Andrew?
possibly, but there's two of Jesus's disciples are with these
Yeah, yeah,
Gentiles,
yeah.
and they don't seem to have an issue with obviously the money, the changing the money, and like they're participating in the thing in the den of thievery that's going on,
Yeah.
right? So I was a bit, I don't know, confused is the right word. I mean, obviously they're not as well versed, I suppose, as or as connected as Jesus is to
Hmm.
that place, which is obviously why he was more upset about it. But it seems like if you're gonna sit there and be like, well, it must be an unblemished animal of the size of yours, like, would you not know that Jesus might have beef with this? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think for me, like I say, it is quite a dry episode. You can't do this and you can't do that and the rest
It's a
of it.
lot of
But
exposition,
there's
I
a lot of
felt, and not a lot of
exposition,
plot.
but it's a bit like somebody putting all these new and different and interesting barriers to sort of getting right with God. Okay, so
Yeah.
the whole idea is that you have a sacrifice, and that you're able to sort of like confess your sins to God, and when you sacrifice in the temple, you get the chance to get right with God.
Mm,
You with me?
yeah.
You get a chance to sort of to renew your relationship with Him, and then you've got people charging exorbitant amounts of money for that. As a general rule, for most church events where there's going to be an altar call, we don't charge. We don't charge for admission, you know? We don't charge for most things, to be honest. So the idea that you are effectively engaging in price gouging, you're saying to people, well, you can't have it if it's this, or you can't have it's that. I feel like we're all really used to the idea of having to pay exorbitant amounts of money for really simple, basic
Yeah.
stuff these days, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just getting worse and worse. And I think if you're Jesus and you take that personally,
Mm,
you're seeing all these people a sort of defiling something you take that is sacred to you, and you see how it's effectively harming people. It drives them mad, you know. One of the things about this season that I think has really helped is it really helps me to understand all the times where there's a Bible passage that starts with the disciples were arguing. It's like, yeah, yeah,
they bicker all the time.
it is a high stress environment. Do you know
Mm,
what I mean? Because they've gone to the most dangerous place they possibly can do, where the temple guards are trying to get to them, and the Romans are trying to get to them, and just anybody who else might have possible
mm,
beef with him. And instead of being like, hey, do you know what? Let's just hang out, let's just chill out and lie low, like stay home for a bit. Jesus is like, yeah, or hear me out. I could make a total scene in the marketplace and get us all
and
killed,
we
you
love
know?
him for that. We love a diva.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting because again, our definitions of violence is and what we think is acceptable and what isn't
Mm,
changes. To me, this section had the reminded me of what I imagined evangelicals were doing after January the 6th.
yeah,
Was
yeah,
this how was this appropriate? Was this okay? And how do we defend this and all this sort of stuff, you know?
yeah.
They're not the same things by any stretch of the imagination, but there was an extra textual element in there that I thought was interesting. And I think that's going to bring us now to
Mm.
some stuff you wanted to tell us about.
Yeah, kind of. So something that I've been grappling a little bit
Hmm.
with The Chosen is knowing that some of the actors especially, so I forget his name, but the guy that plays Simon Peter,
Shahar
um,
Isaac or Shahar Isaac, I'm not 100%
um,
sure which. Should
is
we
an
go with Isaac for
Israeli
now?
citizen.
Yeah.
And so for example, missed the season 4 premiere because he was recalled back into the IDF.
Yeah.
So yeah, things like that that I sort of struggle with a little bit. And I was doing a little bit more digging on uh, Dallas Jenkins and the sort of crew behind The
Yeah.
Chosen that again seem to have a very vocal support for Israel.
Full context on this one, ladies and gents. Last year, we were aware of this with Shahar Isaac
Mm,
and doing his military service for the IDF, and I had only just learned it, and I basically said to Julia, "I know this thing's happened. I can't process this just yet. Can we just side swerve this for a bit?"
mm.
And we did. We agreed to do that, and I think now is probably time for us to
Yeah, to kind of address the.
sit in the complexity.
I
You
think
know,
it's. I know you've literally just said his name, but I'm gonna for San
Shahar Isaac.
Shahar Isaac. There we go.
That again,
Um,
I'm gonna go with that, and
mm,
if I'm wrong, then someone will correct me.
I know, obviously, with Israeli citizens, IDF military service is mandatory,
Hmm.
and not everyone is always in a position to be able to kind of rebel openly. I know that there's been articles and things about Israeli citizens who have dodged the draft or have taken jail sentences to
Yeah.
not serve.
Have you heard there is a specific group of Israelis that of like ultra Orthodox Jews who are somehow exempt from
Yeah.
doing military
Um,
service? Like,
so the thing with Isaacs is that, and I've done a bit of Instagram stalking and things like this,
yeah,
but it's difficult to pass comment or judgment when you are a citizen of a country that is in an oppressive regime.
yeah,
So it's quite easy to say, well, you shouldn't have gone back, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that, when
hmm,
I'm not sure if I would be brave enough to dodge a mandatory military draft.
yeah.
But the thing with Dallas Jenkins, okay.
Okay,
So it started with Israel and then it kind of got worse almost. I was digging through Instagram,
yeah,
and obviously when the turning point of October 7th happened,
yeah,
there was kind of there was a post made on the Chosen official Instagram, which was obviously, which was Israel supportive,
yeah.
which is still there and hasn't been taken down or amended.
Okay,
And the point is, at least what I want to amend is that a lot of what I'm taking from is posts that were, or things that were said 2 or 3 years ago, which you might criticize and say, well, that's 2 or 3 years ago. Is that really
hmm,
relevant? But to my knowledge, none of that has been changed or corrected or amended in any way.
okay.
There's not been, I said something in year X and I don't agree with it now. It
Yeah,
seems to be
that's
that's the
still
thing.
the
So
consensus.
when Jenkins accepted his Caleb Fan Award, for example, he said, "We are a Jewish show, and it's a reminder, there are innocent people in this conflict that's going on in the Middle East right now. We love and pray for all of them, but the roots of our faith and the roots of our entire lives were birthed in Israel. And this is a Jewish show. We serve a Jewish Jesus, and so the people in Israel, we stand with you and we kneel for you." Some things to unpack there. Um,
Yeah.
so Israel didn't exist until the just after the Second World War, if my memory
With
serves.
we're talking about modern Israel.
Modern Israel.
Yeah,
Before then, it was Palestine.
yeah.
And if you look at maps from as late as the early 30s, it will say Palestine.
Hmm.
Um, so,
It was
it's
administered by us as well, wasn't it, at some point?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So again,
Trace anything far back enough and you'll find out it's our fault.
yeah, pretty much. From what I remember slash gather,
Hmm.
essentially, obviously there were a lot of Jewish people that were displaced in Europe during the Second World War, and England went, "Oh, there's this land here. There are people already in it, but they're the wrong color for us and the wrong religion for us, so they don't count to us. So
Yeah.
you can just have that land." And behold, a myriad of issues uh, ever since.
So you're not wrong, but I think the Zionist
It's a
movement,
very, very
yeah, the
simplified
Zionist
version.
movement had kind of have been going on from like the turn of the century, you know. So,
Yeah.
but there's obviously a mass kind of escalation in it
Mm,
after the Second World War for fairly obvious
yeah.
reasons.
I then came across something very, very interesting.
Okay.
Dallas Jenkins doing an interview for CBN, which is an American Christian news
Hmm.
site, talking about the how politics is ultimately not the answer, and things like this. And I found the full interview, which was in response to the shooting of Charlie Kirk. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, I can read to you what he thought of Charlie Kirk if you'd like to hear it.
Yeah, go for it.
Are you sitting down?
I am, yeah.
So Jenkins said, and I quote, "And for myself and others who are conservatives and are probably on the same side that Charlie was on the majority of issues, I didn't agree with him on everything, but his understanding and knowledge of the Bible, of conservative issues and morality and Judeo-Christian values was probably unparalleled." And said he didn't know anyone else who had a, quote, greater or deeper understanding and love for the Bible, for Christ, and for conservative values all at once.
Do you know what? That's an interesting fact, because I've seen this with some of my friends
Mm.
here, where they'll say, "I didn't agree with him on everything." It's like, okay, well, what
Which bits?
specific, which bits specifically did you not agree with him on? Okay, is it the trans people are terrorists and shooters bit, or is it the a woman has to take the man's name, otherwise she doesn't really mean it when they get married? Which bits
Which bits
specifically,
specifically?
exactly? My
What
dude,
exactly?
which bit did you agree with him on? This is something that I've seen where there'll be a vagueness about
Mm.
things. They'll say, well, we really want to speak into the situation in the Middle East and all the horrors happening.
And
It's like,
both
yeah, which,
sides this
yeah,
it really irritated me because and again he was talking about it boiled down to that obviously we should be looking towards the word of God and not the affairs of men, right? So politics isn't the be all and end all, and we it doesn't mean that you should be passionate about it, but at the end of the day it's about your connectedness with God, right?
hmm
He spoke a lot about this rhetoric and demonizing your political and spiritual opponents, and political violence is wrong. And some people, they'll throw around words like evil and Nazi, and it's really damaging. And I'm like, oh my God, sweetheart, you were almost there
mm,
because you didn't want to talk about dangerous rhetoric when January 6th occurred. You didn't want to talk about dangerous
yeah,
rhetoric when it was very clear that there was a genocide occurring in
yeah,
Palestine. You didn't want to talk about violent rhetoric when, ICE were killing American citizens in the street. But now you want to talk about dangerous rhetoric when a, by all accounts, vile human being was shot. And it's not to say that those things are, it's okay to just kill people you don't agree with. But that's not
That's
the
not what,
point,
that is, just so we're
really.
clear, listeners, that's not what we're saying here.
That's not the point. The point is that you now only care about pointing out that dehumanizing of people is wrong
hmm
when it's conservative white men
Yeah,
that are the firing line of that. It was very annoying.
yeah,
And he was like, I'm not saying like I'm not being political. Yes, you are,
yeah,
Dallas. You're being political, whether
yeah.
you like it or not.
One of the most frustrating things is whenever people tell me that I'm too political with things like, well, we're all political. Political is anything where there's a dispute or a
Hmm.
disagreement on something.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, basically.
Yeah.
I don't I
You don't
think
you don't
I
need to
don't know.
apologize. That's fine.
It's difficult when there's something that you really enjoy and then you find out
hmm
that. But then again,
You you f- you
we're
freaked me
Buffy
out with
fans. We've
with
been there
this
before.
because you said there was some big controversy with Dallas Jenkins. I was like, oh, I did actually find myself Googling.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, to me, he strikes me as very much, you know how we talk about like a man of his time. He seems
Mm,
like a man of his culture, and there's
yeah.
adjusting for inflation of evangelical culture. The way he stood up for a crew member with a pride flag on their camera, stuff like that.
Mm,
The way he sort of hires people who aren't Christians to sort
mm,
of tell a story. I think there's good and bad stuff going on there.
yeah.
I don't think I'm likely to see him at any protest rallies, but maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think he's actively making the world worse.
To my knowledge,
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything that's like Dallas Jenkins uses his money to, fund
Yeah.
bomb
Because that's what
making
I thought
factories. You know what I mean?
it was
Yeah,
going to be, you know.
it's not quite
Dallas
like
Jenkins
with
recreationally drowns puppies.
yeah, it's
That's
it's not like with J.K. Rowling where it's actively documented
yeah.
that her money goes towards funding. anti-trans legislation in a way that is meaningful.
One thing I was wondering if you knew, do you know who Dallas Jenkins's dad is?
I do not.
Dallas Jenkins' dad is Jerry Bruce Jenkins. He's an American writer and he's best known for what's called the Left Behind series. Are you familiar with
Hmm.
that?
It's ringing a bell. I think
So
that's
it's a series of books set around after the rapture happens,
mm,
where there's meant to be tribulation and the Antichrist and wars and all this sort of stuff, which until painfully recently was still something that I, on some level, still ascribe to. This was all the kind of the brand of Christianity that I
mm,
came into when I was 14, and it's been a case of untangling and unraveling all that ever since.
mm.
American evangelicals seem to be scarily supportive of Israel because I think part of the reason they think it is because I can't remember which, but I think they think it's fulfilling an end times prophecy of some kind.
That's not scary or
That's
ominous
not
at all.
scary at all. There's the absolute flipping hard on for end time stuff. I was told when I was became a Christian that we were living in the end times, and people in the 1800s believed that they were living in the end times, and Saint Paul believed that he was living in the end times. So my policy with this is I use the line from Nick Fury at the start of Avengers, until the world stops turning, I intend to carry on as if it will.
Mm,
That's the
yeah,
way we go. So there's a lot of things that I think you'd want to sort of sit down with him and say, "Are you sure, Dallas?
yeah,
Does
yeah.
this sound does this sound right to you?" But he
Yeah.
doesn't, and this might just be that we have an exceptionally low bar for the way Americans are treating faith these days, and especially with the rise of Christian nationalism, who
Mm,
want to sort of get rid of, take away the women's right to vote or anything like that.
yeah.
So, whilst I concede that there's a lot of things he said that probably need a bit more nuance or need unpacking further, it's not like he's a politician. He's probably not going to get the kind of uh,
No,
intrusive kind of, and also
yeah.
he doesn't need to do those things. I think the question we have is, what do we do with a piece of media that has problematic people in it? How do you tackle that?
I have sort of a criteria, which
Hmm.
is things like if the author is no longer kind of benefiting, or I mean I'm thinking in terms of authors, for example, if we're going to use H.P. Lovecraft, for example,
Yeah,
as an example, H.P. Lovecraft was a
a
thoroughly
massive
vile
racist.
racist,
Yeah,
so racist that he couldn't bear the thought of having Welsh blood. Like that to be racist against other white people, you're that
I just thought
racist.
he hated black people. Now that he's coming from white
Yeah,
people,
no,
like, yeah,
yeah, a vile human being. However, he's dead, so
hmm,
not that I ever have, but I would not feel bad. I certainly wouldn't feel bad buying copies of things like Call of Cthulhu RPG because the first page of that is we hate H.P. Lovecraft, but Eldritch monsters are sick, so
yeah,
like, um, don't be racist. Have a spiral into insanity instead.
yeah.
So that's
So
usually
if they're dead, it's fine.
if they're
Similarly
dead,
with Roald
it's
Dahl stuff,
yeah. I don't mind at least consuming it. I mean, obviously, you still have to kind of think about it critically and
Yeah.
look at the influences that H.P. Lovecraft is writing quite often about unhuman things that are invading nice, sleepy English towns,
Hmm.
and it doesn't take a lot of allegory to kind of
Work out
see
what's
that
going on
that's
there. Yeah.
racist. It's when I know that so like I mentioned J.K. Rowling earlier, I know that my money or my engagement is going to actively go towards things that will hurt people,
Yeah.
then I won't engage. So I won't watch Harry Potter on Netflix anymore.
Yeah.
I won't buy
I'm not going to be watching the
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 new
HBO
one,
Max
yeah,
one.
the
Yeah.
HBO one. Things like Hogwarts Legacy, the video game that came out a couple of years ago. I'm not going to buy that. Harry Potter is quite hard for a lot of people because it was sort of one of
Everyone's
the very
childhood.
first
Yeah.
things that strangely made them feel like they belong, except the whole book is so obsessed with like bloodlines, and then he
Yeah.
becomes a cop at the end.
Yeah. He's a
So
jock and then becomes a cop. Yeah.
yeah.
The way I sum it up is trans kids' lives are more important than Harry Potter. You know?
Yes, 100%. So I mean, but if you absolutely cannot
So
pirate that stuff.
yeah.
Buy copies of the books secondhand from charity shops.
Hmm.
If you absolutely cannot live without it, then going to lengths to ensure that your money doesn't go towards
Yeah.
things that are hurting
Yeah.
people.
So if we come to, because there's a comedian, Deborah Francis White, who was talking about this issue in light of the Me Too stuff with Kevin Spacey. Like, can we still watch American Beauty even though Kevin Spacey's in it? And her argument was, well, if you don't watch it, then you miss Anne Bancroft's performance, and you miss the work of this person and that person, and so on and so forth. So there is an aspect to it where everybody ends up sort of losing out because
Yeah.
and it's different context for different things. I can't. It became very difficult to listen to anything Lost Profits related after everything. I clearly have a very different relationship to Michael Jackson than the rest of the world these days, because certainly with the new film coming out, it seemed like everyone's just decided to engage in amnesia on that point. So when it comes to this one, with The Chosen, it's not making lots of money, but it's a
No,
crap. So
I think
it's not like it's not like it's donating to Trump or anything like that.
yeah.
And if Shahar Isaac is on set, then he's definitely not anywhere else. So
Yeah.
we could keep an eye on him in these
So
times.
so if we keep The Chosen going, it means that he doesn't have to, go off and
That's why we need to start the
kill
Book of Acts,
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for things like this, it comes down to personal preference.
Yeah.
Can you overlook what is problematic about that person in favor for the things that are good about the show?
Yeah.
I think Buffy's another good example.
Mm-hmm. We have to make our own choices. We have to make our own judgments. And I don't think we can judge other people too harshly for the choices they make, because it's difficult. It's hard. I'm quite happy with the idea of don't buy the thing if it is
actively causing harm.
Yeah.
Don't buy the thing, but it's a difficult one, and it will be different for different people.
Absolutely. We're going to wrap it up there, ladies and gents. This has been a bit more of a serious, a bit more of a heavy one for you.
Yeah, sorry, folks.
So, you get this and the Jesus Christ Superstar one. You get the sweet and the sour, but we are back.
Isn't that what this is about,
We are. Yeah, you're right. We've done it backwards, unfortunately.
We did it backwards,
but there we go. But there we go. Just want to say a quick thank you to our patrons, Sarah Cooper, Jonathan Wattis, James Vittar, Simon Sala, Miss Philip Coleman, Lance Kane, and one Natalie Faye Miniker. Our next episode, because we will be starting the series properly now, our next episode will be Supernatural. I know you're looking forward to that. Yeah, we're really happy to be back. Julia, Mrs. Hull, have you had a good time?
I've had a lovely time. Chatting with you is always nice, even if the subject matter is a bit dour.
Me too. Okay, ladies and gents, join us for Supernatural, which will be way less heavy. Until then, bye.
Bye-bye. God in Film is hosted and created by Giles Goff.
That's me.
Mixing and editing by Giles. Our logo was designed by
Julie Walsh.
And our theme tune was composed by
Rick Lee.
Please rate and review.
Please give us 5 stars because that's a nice thing to do.